Michael Quinn Sullivan of Empower Texans. You can go to empowertexans.com, see their entire website and everything they do. Michael, how are you?
Hey, doing great this morning. I think that, after being told that, Texas was turning blue, Texas turning purple, a lot of fun to wake up this morning and see, we're an even brighter shade of red than we've ever been.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is something that I'm sure Battleground Texas, they are meeting about today. They will be discussing with the Obama administration what went wrong. What do you think what went wrong? Was this just a bunch of outsiders who didn't know anything about Texas who came in and tried to run the wrong candidates? Or was this a case where, hey, Texas is a red state, it's going to stay red, and as long as we keep electing the right people, Republicans should be good to go?
Yeah, I don't think anything went wrong. I think that everything went perfectly right. Battleground Texas came in saying that they were going to make the case for why Texas needed to be reshaped in the image of Barack Obama, and Texans said, no, thank you. You had the Houston Democratic Party with big signs saying, help Obama, vote straight Democrat, and Houstonians took the message to heart. I think that they did everything they said they were going to do. It's just that what they were selling, no one in Texas is buying. 10 fewer counties went Democrat last night than went Democrat 4 years ago. They've lost ground after spending millions and millions of dollars because it's to the point you said. Texans just aren't interested. Texas is a conservative state, and they're not really interested in the malarkey that those guys are selling.
Well, I think you even look at Harris County. There were some races where Republicans won in Harris County. That not completely expected. Dallas County. You look at the DA's race there. And you have a Republican who pulled out a win in that one. So even in some of these blue counties, you started to see maybe a glimmer of hope going into the future.
Yeah, well, no, I think that's right, and I think what the times I've been in the Metroplex over the past couple of weeks at the at events in the Metroplex, I should say, in the past couple of weeks, I saw the Dallas County DA or his staff and his team campaigning. They had a real presence, and I think this goes to there's this kind of unfortunate view of, that seat is a Democrat seat. You can't win it. They'll never vote for a conservative there. That kind of mentality is, that when you take that, you're certain to lose. And I think that maybe the lesson there for us needs to be, don't give up anywhere. If we go, as Reagan would say, cheerfully forward, presenting our ideas and our values and our principles, Texans respond to that.
Visiting with Michael Quinn Sullivan of Empower Texans. Let's take a look going into the future for the GOP here in the state of Texas. Obviously a huge win. Wendy Davis could not even break out of 38% in that election. Really no Democrat got above 38% statewide. I think the next best was Letitia Vanderpoot, and she finished with 38.2% maybe, 38.6% in that race. So to me, this shows a big mandate for Republicans, obviously, for Greg Abbott, but also for conservatives out there and for conservative action going into the next legislative session. Is that the message, do you think, that voters sent last night in a statewide?
I think it's overwhelmingly the message that was sent last night. You saw in races where the establishment, where the media had said, there's no way Dan Patrick can be the next lieutenant governor of Texas. If those crazy conservatives get Dan Patrick the nominee, Dan Patrick will lose. Well, Dan Patrick won by the same margin Greg Abbott did. They said the same thing about Ken Paxton as Attorney General. So the voters clearly, the general election voters clearly ratified the decisions made in the Republican primary to an overwhelming extent. You can see the election of Connie Burton to the Texas Senate in Senate District 10, Tarrant County, where that was a seat currently held, actually, by Wendy Davis. Wendy Davis didn't seek re-election so she could run for governor, and that's something held by Connie Burton, a Tea Party activist extraordinaire. I mean, she actually started a Tea Party group in Tarrant County. She is a Tea Party conservative. So I think the voters are making some very clear policy prescription changes that they're expecting for. They want reform-minded results out of conservatives. And I think the Texas House is going to have to pay attention to that. Joe Strauss, the current Speaker of the House, he and his team have been saying for weeks that they're going to block the conservatives in the Senate. I think Texans are kind of wanting what the conservatives in the Senate are selling. Joe Strauss refused to support Lieutenant Governor-elect Dan Patrick or Attorney General-elect Ken Paxton. He refused to support any of those guys, and yet the voters overwhelmingly did. So I think there's going to be some real grown-up conversations. I think Dustin Burrows and John Frullo and the other folks there in the High Plains, they're going to have to look real carefully at, do they want to side with an obstructionist or do they want to side with Texans?
Well, and this is almost a new era for the Texas Senate and for the Texas House, because in the past you've had the House, which have elected people who have been seen as more conservative than the Texas Senate. I think right now you could say that with Dan Patrick in the Texas Senate, with people like Senator Charles Perry in the Texas Senate Senate's looking pretty conservative. Is it going to be up to the House to catch up to what the Senate is going to do now?
Well, I think for those House members, they are definitely going to find themselves in the hot seat. That if they keep Joe Strauss as Speaker, I think a lot of House members are going to find themselves not only having to explain yet again why conservative legislation didn't move forward, but they're going to have to do so in the context of their own state senator saying, well, look what I did. John Frullo and Dustin Burrows are going to be, if Joe Strauss is Speaker, they're going to be sitting there with no conservative results to speak of, and yet Charles Perry, the state senator, bragging about what he did in the Senate. So I think that again, Frullo is, and particularly Frullo, is going to have a real serious thinking about what does he want to be when he grows up. Does he want to be an obstructionist, or does he want to side with the people of Texas?
Very interesting debate going into the next legislative session. I know we'll be talking about it. I know you will be as well. Tell folks a little bit about Empower Texans and your website as well, and tell everyone where they can follow you.
We focus on state and local issues. Would love to have folks visit our website, empowertexans.com. They can find us on Twitter, on Facebook, but if you head on over to empowertexans.com, we'd love to have folks take a look at our work and get engaged in their government.
One last question I have for you, Michael, before I let you go. Long-term effect from last night's debacle for Democrats here in the state of Texas, whether it be long-term effect from how Wendy Davis performed or just Democrats as a whole statewide. What do you think the long-term effects are?
If the Democrats are smart, Gilbert Hinojosa, the chairman of the Democratic Party, is sitting there having a real grown-up conversation with his team about maybe them needing to jettison the national liberalism. They had the opportunity to put this, pro-abortion, wild, crazy leftist ticket forward, and it got trounced. Remember, Tony Sanchez, who was a very centrist Democrat, performed. He was the worst performing Democrat in state history, and he did better than Wendy Davis did back 10 years ago. So I think the Democrats might have to suddenly find themselves tacking to the right if they want to have any chance of being competitive in the future. Yeah,
I would agree with you on that. Michael Quinn Sullivan, as always, appreciate your time, and we'll have you on as we get closer to the legislative session and during the legislative session as well.
I appreciate it, brother. Have a great, great day.
You too. It is a good day out there, so you have a good one.
Yes.
All right, it's Michael Quinn Sullivan, Empower Texans, empowertexans.com. See, everyone's a little happy today.